Hello, welcome along to Marine in the Moment, part of our Essex Wildlife Trust Marine Week celebrations. Today we're talking about plastics. You may have seen our live streams last week on salt marshes, and later on this week we've got one about oysters. I'm Adam, the Coastal Ranger here at Essex Wildlife Trust. I look after the Tollsbury Wick and Colnport Nature Reserves. Today I'm here with Alex Smith, who is our Marine and Coastal Engagement Officer, who does some great work working on seagrass as well as oysters, as well as engaging with the community, educating them and getting them involved with some of our amazing projects. So Alex, what are we talking about today?
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Smith. I'm the Marine and Coastal Engagement Officer for the Essex Wildlife Trust, and we are here today at the Naze, which I'm sure you can tell. This is a very familiar site to a lot of people along the Essex coastline. You get a lot of fossils along here. We've already found a couple of sharks teeth today, which is fantastic. Someone yesterday found a megalodon tooth, which was pretty, well, I'm very jealous about that, to be honest. But today we're here to talk about plastics. So in my hand right now, just from a few minutes ago, we found just these plastics along the seashore. So we've got a variation of things, got a few tags. I think that's some eyeliner or lash or something. Quite a few different plastic items here, and that's just in the space of a couple of minutes. And I'm sure a lot of people are already aware about the scale of the plastic problem, but maybe to talk a little bit more about it today, learn a bit more about the facts of the damage it does. So plastics in general, they've been around what it feels like for a long time. It's about 100 years, but they've actually been kind of more widespread since the Second World War and the kind of industry that followed that. And there's been a huge amount of plastic produced. Now we're up to about 500 million tonnes a year of plastics are produced, which is obviously a huge amount. And it's quite worrying, actually, the amount that it's produced, because we're so reliant upon it. Even though it's a really, really useful material, you find it everywhere, from your phones to in your cars, day-to-day life, single use, in your plastic, everything. And yes, it's very, very useful material, but there's actually a lot of damage that it causes as well. So we find it along our beaches, in our woodlands, all throughout the environment, because a lot of it is single use. And as an example, in terms of the amount of damage that it produces, is that 100 million animals each year, approximately, in the marine environment are killed by plastic. And this could be either being caught up in the plastic and not able to move or breathe, in the case of maybe a whale or a dolphin or a seal or something like that. It could be that it's ingested or eaten by an animal. So for example, turtles quite often mistake a piece of plastic, for example a plastic bag which looks kind of transparent, might look like a jellyfish, which is what they eat, and then they ingest that, and then they effectively become full up, so they feel like their stomach is oh, I'm just littering right now. Adam, quick. So they feel like they've got a really full belly and they're full of food, when in actual fact it's just plastic, so they effectively starve to death. And also the plastics themselves are toxic, and so that can leach into their bodies and poison them. It can change their sex, it can cause all sorts of trouble, and so yeah, the really, really bad news in terms of animals, as well as the pollution in our environments and our habitats, like the one we've got here today. So that kind of leads us a little bit into why Adam's here. So Adam is our coastal ranger, such a place like this, and some of the animals that eat plastic mistakenly are birds, and Adam kind of looks after this area along a couple of our sites along the coast. So Adam, do you want to tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, sure. So I run a project called Share Our Shores, which is promoting awareness of and protecting our beach nesting birds. So the three main birds we look at are terns, which are sort of like sleek little seagulls with different coloured beaks; oyster catchers, which you may have seen, which are black and white birds with bright red legs and bright red eyes; and as well as ring plovers, which are these tiny little birds, almost like the size of a sparrow, that are black and white, and you might see them scuttling along the beach. Now they nest directly on the beach, so what we can see here along the sort of line of clay here at Waltham is the strand line. Now this is the point of the highest tide, so what the birds will do is they'll see that tide mark. It's usually marked by some seaweed, maybe even driftwood, and the birds will nest above that strand line mark. But because of that, that's also where the plastic gets washed up in. So the light stuff like the seaweed and the plastics will also get washed in alongside where these birds are nesting. So we often can see these birds which lay their eggs directly onto the beach, nesting meters away from huge bits of fishing rope. And it just goes to show that plastic pollution really does affect everywhere, and especially our nature reserves. And a lot of our nature reserves in Essex, we limit the access of people who can go on there, which means unfortunately we don't often capacity to fully clean them, which then means even more plastic will get washed up on the beach, which is more of a threat to our animals, such as our waders and our beach nesting birds that use the beaches.
Exactly, and it's brilliant places like this at the Naze. They do regular beach cleaning events which you can join in and help to clean the beaches, but also whenever you go maybe to the woodland or out and about and you see some litter on the floor, whether it's plastic or a crisp packet or anything, if you can pick that up, fit it in the bin, that would help a long way. So just in the space of, as I said a few minutes earlier, we picked up just a handful of plastic. And much further along the beach, this is a relatively clean beach, but much further along where the tides kind of converge, there's areas of a lot of plastic pollution up there, including microplastics, which is another really big area of concern, because most of these are macroplastics, which mean they're quite large, they're visible to the naked eye, you can spot them very, very easily. But over time, even though plastics generally can survive, I'll say survive like it's doing, but plastics generally keep going for hundreds of years, so they don't really break down. But they can get smaller due to maybe salt corrosion or sunlight, and they just get smaller and smaller and smaller. And animals mistakenly eat those too, but what that also means is because they're so small, they're very easy to transport around the world. So they're found at the top of Mount Everest, they're found along all the whole coastlines, they're found even in humans. We mistakenly ingest them ourselves through maybe the food that we eat, or perhaps even from our clothes, that kind of emit these tiny microfibers as well. And one other thing, a little story actually, a little anecdote, is that I met a few years ago a chap who's a pilot of a submersible, which is obviously a really cool job, seen some amazing things under the water, but he's also been obviously really deep in the submersible, 1 or 2 kilometers deep. And I asked him when I met him if he ever sees plastic on the bottom of the sea, and he said every single time there's plastic at the bottom of the sea. And you think that's the most inaccessible place where we can go, really, and there's still plastic there. So it shows you the scale of the problem. So what we're asking is that please, if you're able to collect plastics, if you can, make sure you keep clean. Mainly try using plastic alternatives as well, things like a bamboo toothbrush, recycle where you can, maybe in cosmetic products as well, you can get a lot of good alternatives. And just try to restrict your use of single-use plastics particularly, and just be as eco-conscious as you possibly can. And also helping out on shore searches, clean beaches, beach clean events, things like that, and that will go a real long way to helping to protect our environments, our birds and our coastlines. And yeah, thank you very much for your help. Hope that's been informative. If you've got anything extra facts or anything to say?
No, I think if you do want to take part in a beach clean, check out the Essex Wildlife Trust website for all of our events. I know we've got a bunch of beach cleans going on during the 6 weeks holidays, so it's a great thing to do with the family. But yeah, that's it from me.
Brilliant, thank you, and I hope you join in on our other Marine in the Moment videos as well. We've got one later on this week on Thursday, where I'll be joined by a couple of other people talking about our oyster project, which is working with the Blue Marine Foundation, delivering the Essex Native Oyster Restoration Initiative, otherwise known as ENORI. And we'll be looking at our oysters, what other animals we find, and yeah, the general oyster restoration project. So I hope to see you on that one. Thank you.